And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here again, and today we're going to be taking a look at a game from the Fragor brothers who brought you Antics. They also brought you Poseidon's Kingdom, and they brought you this one quite some time ago. It's called Shear Panic, and it has these awesome little pieces in it. We have some little sheep that are going to be maneuvering around trying to earn points by being next to other sheep, or trying to avoid or get close to other characters in the game, Roger the Ram, or staying away from the Shearer at the end of the game. And whoever best manipulates their sheep's positions through kind of an abstract style of play is going to win the game. So real quick, why don't we take a look at this game for 2 to 4 players. We'll see how it plays, and then we'll come back here and we'll get my final opinions on it. Here you can see the components for Shear Panic. All very nice components. These are sculpted pieces, the sheep and the black sheep. Some little wooden bits and a score track, and each player is going to have their own player board. And on your turn, basically what you're going to do is you are going to go ahead and choose one of these actions from your sheet, and all of these actions do something different. Now in the game you're only going to get to use each action once, and you'll see there are multiples of some of the actions, so I guess you use each space once, but there are multiples of each action so that you can use different actions multiple times. Now, you're going to be navigating through this field using this little flock token, and there are 4 fields on this board divided by little dividers. You'll see there's a bench here, there's a grate here, and there's another divider right here, a little pen. And what you're going to be doing is you're going to be going through these, scoring points, keeping track of how many actions have been used kind of with this little marker, and scoring points differently at the end of each of these different areas or in each of these different fields. But that's something to be gone over in a moment. So on your turn, you're going to use one of your discs to mark which of these actions you're going to take, and the actions do different things. So for example, we have this pushing action here. You could place one of your markers on here, you choose one of your sheep, and you move it in any direction. It's going to push all other sheep in that direction with it. So for example, let's say I chose this green sheep here, and I choose for it to move this direction. So it would push all of the other sheep in that direction with it. Great, and then the next player would have the chance to go, and they're going to have their own board. So yellow has their own board, and maybe they choose to do this action right here. This action is going to allow you to move an entire row one way or the other, always starting from the outside. So if they were to place that, they'd place on their board. They could choose a row and move it over one way. Maybe they choose this row, they decide to go this way. And all of the pieces are going to shift that way. So our board starts to change from the square that it started with, or as, to a different board configuration. And the other actions are as follows. This one allows you to jump to the next open spot with any one sheep of your own choice. So, for example, this one for green. This one here is going to allow you to put an invisible ruler down and push all pieces over to that ruler. So, for example, if I pretended the ruler was here, all of the other pieces would shift over here, and this is the current position of our board. These two should be all the way over to that side. This one here is going to have you rotate the entire field 90 degrees. Whereas this one here is going to let you move diagonally, but you must start from an outside edge. And this one allows you to move one sheep any direction, but it may not move any other sheep. So you can see there are a variety of different ways to manipulate this board in order to get your sheep where you want them to be. Now, where that's going to be is going to depend on where this marker is currently. In the first field, you always want your sheep to be adjacent to your other sheep. And if it's diagonally adjacent, it's worth 1 point at the end of your turn. If it is directly next to it, it's worth 2 points. So right now, green, if it were the end of their turn, would get 1 point for having their sheep diagonally adjacent. However, when you take an action, you're going to advance this little marker by the numbers shown on this spot here. So in this case, 3. And we would move 3. Now there's a special case here. If you end on one of these red spots, you get to roll this die. And when you roll this die, it's going to come up with a color, and you get to move one of those sheep as if you were taking this action here, the bulldozer one, which is going to allow you to push all other sheep in the direction of that sheep. So if you moved, for example, this blue sheep this way, it would push the black sheep, which would push this blue sheep, and the blue sheep would the blue sheep would end up out like this. This creates a problem. This sheep is no longer connected to the flock of sheep, and they included a die just for that, which is this die right here, and you would roll this die if it got completely disconnected, if it was out here. But since this is already diagonally connected, the player who is currently acting gets to choose whether this is going to line up in this direction, or if it's going to line up in the other possible direction, which would be down here next to this sheep. After they've done this, they're going to go ahead and it's going to be the next player's turn. But if this is, as I said, completely disconnected, you're going to roll this die here, and it will tell you either you're going to bring it back diagonally or you're going to bring it back orthogonally. And you would do what the die says, but if there's still a way to choose, you would choose. Anyhow, you're going to move on, and you're going to score points for adjacent sheep, your own adjacent sheep, through this whole first field. In the second field, you're going to have a ram that comes out, and the ram is going to be placed at the front of the flock. And at the end of these, or on these brown scoring spots, whenever you pass one of these, you're going to score points for being closest to the ram. Everybody wants to be close to the ram because these are all sheep, and they're all madly in love with him. And that's going to happen at these first and second brown spots here, and you'll stop at that second brown spot, not able to move into this third field until you've gone through the second scoring. But basically, the closer you are to this ram, the more points you're going to get. The third field is going to score points for being both adjacent to your own sheep and adjacent to the black sheep. So it's going to be 1 point for diagonal and 2 points for orthogonal, the same for the black sheep. So right here you have a point for the two greens being adjacent diagonally, and 2 points for being adjacent to the black sheep if it was the end of green's turn. The fourth and final field is going to have the shearer, and he will replace the ram. And the shearer is a bad sheep. You're going to be going through, and when you get to the first brown spot after that turn, all of the sheep in the row closest to the shearer are going to get eliminated. So if this were the final situation, this yellow and this blue sheep would get eliminated. And now we have this flock of sheep. And the sheep furthest from the shearer are going to get the most points, with points going down the closer you are to the shearer. After the second one, you are going to go ahead and eliminate the next closest row again, so maybe these three got eliminated. And any sheep that are left at the end of the round are going to score. After you've gone through all 4 fields, whoever has the most points is going to be the winner. And there you have it. That is Shear Panic. A pretty simple game to learn as long as you have the rule book, which I didn't. But if you have the rule book, it's a pretty easy game to learn. It's a game for 2 to 4 players, and one that, although not incredibly strategic, has some level of strategy to it insofar as making your own moves and trying to predict what your opponents are going to do. So you don't have a deep level of control because you have to, manipulate your sheep, but other players may manipulate your sheep as well. So an easy game, an easy one to learn, a fun game, but not one where you're going to have deep level of control over what you're doing. So if you're looking for something light, simple to play, simple to teach, and that you can play with many different age ranges, check out Shear Panic. A pretty decent game, but not one I think is going to be great for the heavy gamers out there.
To try this game and over 800 others before you buy them, visit BoardGameExchange.com.
Thanks for watching our review today. For more information about board games, as well as the #1 board game audio podcast, check out Dicetower.com for reviews, interviews, and more. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.